Okay, so here's a customer's rig, little walk around video. I've done quite a bit of work to this little Samurai over the years, and so I figured I'd kind of show the things that I've done. And this time it's here for a clutch job. It's got a clutch that's wore out and slipping. So that's why it's here. And I'm gonna do some kind of front end maintenance. It's got like some death wobble stuff going on at higher speeds. And so I wanna get that all checked out. Just off the top, real quick, I noticed it's got a ton of toe in, so I'm gonna get that set correctly. And then just go through, check all the wheel bearings and kingpins and make sure everything's tight. Try to get it to where this guy can maintain some speed a little better. You know, it's primarily used for crawling, but depending on the location, sometimes you've got to go down the roads a ways, gravel roads, to get from one big obstacle to the next, depending on you know, where he's wheeling at. So that's why it's here this time. So I'm gonna do this clutch. He ordered this through Petroworks. So this is a good Japanese Exceedi clutch. And this is kind of the better performance one with the like the ceramic buttons on one side and like the organic material on the other. This is a nice kit, comes with everything: pressure plate, disc, throwout bearing, and pilot bearing in here somewhere. I've done these before, but more of like the regular material, and they're a nice clutch. So I'm interested to see how this one feels with these ceramic buttons on the one side. So I've done a bunch of work to this thing over the years. This is probably the 4th or 5th time I've worked on it. I met this guy years and years ago, back when forum sites were popular. And I believe we first started talking on Suzuki World, if I remember correctly. I was kind of advertising on there, doing work on stuff, and he was in my area, so that's where we started. So I believe these are 38s. When I first started working on this, I think he had a little bit smaller tires on it, 35s or 36s. But you know, it had the exo cage, the Toyota axles, but it was stock wheelbase. And so the first go round, basically I cut this thing in half and stretched it. I believe it's 14 inches, and then dovetailed the rear quarter panels. So each corner is tucked in 5 inches. So the total tailgate width is like 10 inches less. So I split the body, you know, basically right at this corner. And, you know, he's painted it and stuff, so I honestly don't even remember where the line is. But I basically made a panel like that. And, you know, I made this panel. I used a bead roller and copied the body lines. So it tried to make it as original looking as I could. And you can basically see right here, from this point to this point is the stretch. Here to here is how much I've stretched it. So I split the body, basically cut all the body apart, kept kind of the framework around the tailgate after taking 10 inches out, built all new inner wheel tubs, and cut the frame, you know, basically here. You know, this point here was basically here. So I split it there, you know, added new, you know, 4x2 tubing is a really, really close match to whatever this metric. It's probably 50 by 100. Made these fish plates. You know, they go underneath some of the stuff that's been added later, all the way from here to here, on either side of both frame rails to make it strong again. And then I built these more kind of like box fender wells, and used diamond plate to make a new floor. And so these go all the way up to basically right behind the seat, and they're capped off. to make it real simple. And then it's got a nice square, basic square cargo area. And you can see this bumper was already on it, so I chopped it and brought it together. I cut down the tailgate too. Sometimes he runs it with the tailgate, sometimes he doesn't. And then I had to cut up his exo cage and kind of reshape it, stretch it out and reshape it for all those changes. And then, had to make longer links. And then I cut up and modified the the upper wishbone link for the rear suspension. Yeah, that was basically the first go around. And then the next thing I did is we did a power steering upgrade. I believe, pretty sure it had a sidekick box on it. I don't remember exactly. It's, like I said, it's been a while, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a sidekick box. It couldn't turn these big tires. And so now it's got a Toyota Land Cruiser 80 series box in it. And I like these boxes for Samurais because it's a forward steer. And so that gets the box back so you don't have to cut up all this core support and body mount area like you would if you used like a IFS Toyota pickup box. And they're pretty powerful. When you pair these with a good pump, they're powerful. At that same time, I rebuilt all this track bar mounting setup. I had to cut the original Rocky Road one off because that's right where the box sits. And these frames are pretty weak. And so when I built the new track bar mounting, it wraps around that frame, and then the whole thing basically is a new cross member, and it goes across under the oil pan and grabs the other frame rail. So that both frame rails are sharing the load from that track bar. So it's not trying to just tear up one side. And when we did that, we also did a good pump. Like I said, it's about 10 years ago. I don't remember. I think it was like a PSC pump. Good pump, reservoir, cooler, all that good normal stuff. And so now it steers pretty darn good. Then at some point he had somebody remove the coil springs and put on these Fox air shocks. And it sat really tall. It was 5 inches taller than it is now. And he wasn't happy with the stability and just how it drove. And so when it was set up originally, they had 14-inch travel shocks in the front, and I don't remember if these are 10s or 12s, but those in the rear. And so I flip-flopped them. I put the short ones on the front and the long ones on the back and I modified the front mounts. I kept the hoops, cut the original tabs off, and kind of built this brace with longer tabs to get the top eye of the shock where it needed to be, to get the right height and the right travel split. And then the rear, I modified this tubing cross member. It goes all the way across. They installed this and had tabs coming off right here for the eye of the shock to mount right here. So I cut those tabs off and added another tube here, and then built these plate hoops to get the top of the eye where it needed to be in the rear. So now it's got the 14-inch travel shocks in the back and the other ones in the front. Like I said, they're 12s. I think they're 12s. Doesn't really matter. So I like it set up like this because we're able to get the sit down, like I said, 5 inches lower. And now the rear has got more wheel travel than the front. I feel like if you've got more travel in the front than you do the rear, that's just a weird handling setup. And I don't like it. It's just unnatural feeling to me. So we did that and then paired it with a front sway bar. This is a 1-inch sway bar. I think it's 38 inches long, somewhere in there. And then it's got these, it's a splined bar, and it's got these aluminum arms, and then I built this metal end. It's got real long end links to keep all the angles happy. You know, they sit up at this angle like this because it sits down in its travel. And so it's only got a little bit of up travel, but a ton of droop. And so that way the arm, you know, just the geometry works out best that way with the way it's sitting. Basically at mid travel, the arm is horizontal, but it sits down in the travel pretty far. So I changed up all the shocks. Then, I don't remember, I think it was the same time I changed up the front end. It was a radius arm setup. So it had a little link that bolted in here and then bolted in right there on the axle. And with that style setup, the front suspension really can't articulate freely. They really bind up, and it was causing these welds to break and rip these mounts off of the axle. And it just didn't want to move. It was just all bound up. And so we got rid of these upper links, kept the bottom, and then just added a regular link. See, there's the pivot right there, right above the diff. And then it's got a separate, just single bar with heims on both sides. So now it's just like a traditional 3-link with a track bar. And so the suspension is free to move and articulate without any binding, and its stability is all controlled by, you know, the combination of the shocks and the sway bar. Some people like the radius arms because they're inherently stable. Well, they're inherently stable because they bind. You know, they try to basically turn your whole front axle into a sway bar. And if everything is not built super, super tough, it'll just tear things up eventually. And so just to eliminate that issue and make the travel controlled by things that are controllable, you know, you can adjust the sway bar, you can adjust the shocks. I think a 3-link is way better. So that was done a couple years ago, that part of it. And then I would say about a year or so back, I pulled the transmission out, resealed it. It was having some leak issues. Put it back in, and then I think the last time I worked on it, I changed up. It had like a Johnny joint right here on its upper wishbone in the rear. And it just didn't have enough angle in how much it could twist. And so when the axle would articulate, it would either try to tighten it in the hole or loosen it, because it was threaded in for adjustability. And so I took that out and had to do a little bit of work, but put in a 1.25 by 1 inch heim. So it's got a 1 inch bore in the ball and a 1.25 inch shank. And then it's got high misalignment spacers. And so this thing has a ton of twist. So this main body, it never bottoms out against it now. And then I reinforced these tabs. These tabs didn't have any bracing. I added these little corner gussets to it, just for safety's sake. I think that is pretty much wraps it up for the work I've done to it. Like I said, so right now I'm doing the clutch and see if we can figure out this high-speed stability issue with the kind of death wobble it's getting. Like I said, the toe is way off. And I'm going to spin all the wheels, make sure it doesn't have a bent wheel. Just try to get to where it runs smoother at high speeds. You know, obviously the tires aren't balanced because they're on bead locks. So I'm going to throw these wheels all on my little bubble balancer and see if they're, maybe it's off a mile on a couple of them, and we could try to make that better. You know, unfortunately this thing probably sits a lot more than gets used because it's a dedicated wheeler. So I'm sure the tires are pretty flat spotted and stuff too. But I'm going to try to get that all figured out. Try to get a plan together for him. See if it's something he wants to tackle or not. But a pretty cool rig. I've watched a lot of videos he posts up of him wheeling this thing, and it's a monster. It just goes through stuff like you wouldn't believe. You know, obviously he's got some good driving skill as well. It's pretty cool to watch. So I'm gonna get to work, get this thing, get this clutch changed out. Oh, something I forgot to mention. It's got a Sidekick 1.6 16 valve, you know, with all the factory fuel injection. I believe Trail Tough installed this back in the day. So 16 valve, Toyota 5 or Samurai 5-speed, Samurai T case, 6.4 gears, and then they're Toyota axles with 529s, I believe. And then he's got like the heavy duty shafts and all that sort of stuff. He's got some sort of locker in the front. I don't know what the front is, lock right or something like that. And then the rear is either a spool or it's just welded. And then let's see if we can find. The tires are pretty. Oh, there we go. Yep. Here's the tire size, 38s, 38, 13, 15s. You know, steel beadlock wheels. Yep, this thing's a monster. It's funny with sitting next to mine. I'll see if I can find a picture. Makes mine look like a toy. But anyway, thanks for watching.